So this is one of the first lives on Facebook and YouTube that I'm doing. And the topic of this live is the psychological war on children. Because I believe there is a psychological war going on humanity right now. And especially on children. Because for children, this whole situation, it's so much more, and it makes an imprint on their personality, on the way they will act during the rest of their lives. And that is something that can change this whole world. And it's already been changing, but if you make an imprint on a young mind, it is so powerful. The things that happen to us and how we are brought up, the way we are raised, the way the schooling system is, has such a big effect on the person that we become. So, what is happening right now? The psychological war that's being waged on children is something that we need to discuss, that I feel that I need to discuss. And that is so important to shine a light on. So that's why I'm going to talk about it today. And to do this, I want to show you something. I posted this this image. I posted this image on my Instagram stories, my Facebook stories. And I got some comments from people, some messages, that I couldn't compare these things. That I couldn't compare what you see above, which is clearly like some type of slavery image, where there are slaves chained to each other with a rope and made to walk through some nature or something. And the image below that, which shows kids socially distancing with a rope, with masks on. And people said, you can't compare those. You can't compare. This is a different context. I beg to differ. I think it's very, very similar. Of course, there's a different context. There's a different story, right? It's different circumstances. But to me, this is some type of slavery that we see below here. And the effect that this has on the minds of these children is insane. What do you think a kid like this, who grows up like this, what do you think will happen to them when they get older? These kids are being raised. They will get mental illness. They will have those types of problems. They're being made scared of everything around them, of their classmates, of other people, because not only can they get sick, not only are they told that they can get very ill, but they are a danger to the rest around them. They are a danger now to their parents, their grandparents, the other kids. So the psychological implications this has on the mind of a little child, it's insane. You're growing up in a state of fear. A state of fear where if you don't comply with the rules, in this case, you have to socially distance, you have to hold the rope, you have to put on a mask, and if you don't comply, you can actually kill someone, right? That's a narrative that is actually told to children. And this effect that this will have on the next generation, on this generation, the next one, And what types of people that will produce is it's insane. So I want to like dissect this a little bit, and what causes mental illness, because this is what causes mental illness. This whole new normal that we are now basically in, which they're calling a new normal, but there's nothing normal about it, right? And this term, new normal, is such a deceptive term. Because when I first heard this term, I was already like, wow, this is totally, I immediately recognized propaganda. Because if you want to actually tell something to people who are scared, right? And if you have the best intentions, will you tell them that this is never going away? Will you tell them that this is the new type of normal? Or will you reassure them that we will get to a better situation where this is all gone again? No, as soon as this was introduced, it was like, this is the way it's going to be from now on, right? This is the way we're going to interact now. We're not going to shake hands anymore. We're not going to hug each other anymore. We're not going to touch each other anymore. No more kissing, right? No more meeting with other people. We're going to do everything online. And this is the new normal. Now, there's nothing normal about that. There's nothing normal about that. What's normal for people is all those things I just mentioned. That's normal. And that's how we stay sane. That's our true nature. Our true nature is to connect with each other. If we isolate, if we are alone, if we isolate from everyone else, that's where mental illness starts. That's where we get anxiety. That's where we get depression. That's where we start to lose track of our livelihood. So, it's insane what is happening. It's insane. And I want to like first show you, this is a book I've read a while ago. It's called Lost Connections, Why We're Depressed and How to Find Hope. And I already knew a lot about anxiety and depression. I've coached people, I've helped people get over certain issues. But this book was really eye-opening. It showed, it's by Johan Hari. And here are the lessons from the book that summarized. And I think it's very important to go over these, just briefly. So, yeah, he says basically that there are 9 common reasons for depression and anxiety and mental illness, basically. And these all have to do with disconnection. When we disconnect, when we isolate, when we stop being in connection with certain things, with each other, but also, for instance, with having a purpose in life, when you have meaningless work, when you're doing some meaningful job and you don't feel like you're contributing anything to society or something. That is, if you disconnect from that, that's how you get depression and anxiety and all types of mental illness. And that's what a lot of people have, of course, in our society. They don't feel that like they're having any meaningful contribution. But the disconnection from others is a very, very big one. Loneliness and no sense of belonging are big indicators of depression. So what happens if little kids are basically being socially isolated, are taught not to come close to others, are taught that they can kill their grandma, kill their dad, their mom, if they get sick, so they have to abide by the rules. This is very important. If you have to abide by the rules or these things happen. This is how you basically create obedient slaves, but also people with mental illness. People who can't think normally anymore, who don't see any bright future anymore, who deteriorate. So another one is disconnecting from meaningful values. Another one is childhood trauma. What do you think this does to children? The fact that you have to do this because else you can make other people sick. What kind of traumatizing worlds they are growing up in. What they are being taught. Total fear around them constantly, right? A fearful world they're growing up in. It's insane. It's insane what that does to your mental state. If you get that imprint on such a young age, and the person you become, that has such a big effect. So, disconnecting from nature, disconnecting from a secure and hopeful future, that's a big one, right? Disconnection from a secure and hopeful future. What is the image they're constantly showing you? Like, this is never going away, this is the new normal, right? There is no hope, right? Oh, the hope is the vax. I'm not going to say the whole word, or I get censored. But you still have to socially distance. They still have to put on the mask, right? It's never going away. This is here to stay, right? So there's no hopeful future. These are the things that are in the book. You have to read the book. I highly recommend the book. But this is it's very logical that we as human beings are not made for this new type of normal, right? We're not made to socially distance. We're not made to be isolated, to do everything online, right? To put on this mask as if our breathing is contagious, and like this state of fear. We're not made for this. We're made to connect. We're made to roll through the mud, to not wash our hands constantly, to kiss each other, to hug each other. That's what we're made for, right? And if you look at it from a spiritual angle, where everything is connected into one, which is basically, in my view, the ultimate spiritual truth, that everything is one, the further you go away from that, the further you live in this fear, the further you disconnect from the whole, from everyone, from nature, from a meaningful purpose in life, from each other, mental illness starts to set in. You lose it. You lose your humanity. You lose what it means to be human. So what is happening to these kids, right? And I have some others here that being tested all the time. Being tested all the time. Oh, because you might be sick. You might be sick. There might be something wrong with you, right? We have to test you, or you could kill grandma. Being made to stand in this ridiculous circles and stuff like that, right? This makes obedient slaves. And schooling, in my view, was already set up to do that, to create these obedient type of workers. And I can back that up. And that was actually set up by very rich bankers, the Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Endowment, the Ford Foundation, and others, who basically changed the way education was done to make it this outcome-based compulsory schooling, which it is today, where you're taught certain principles. Like there's a conditioning in the way school is taught. School is taught worldwide, basically. And it's all based on a Prussian model of schooling. And but now, this is next level, right? This whole crisis has made this conditioning on children next level. Because before, it was just do what the teacher says, just repeat what the teacher says, repeat what's in the school book, right? And you are a good little boy or girl if you repeat that. You get a good grade if you repeat exactly what's in the book, if you studied the book, and you repeat what it is, and the authority, the figure, the teacher says, you've done a good job. And if you didn't do a good job, if you didn't repeat what was said, if you went out of the box, if you said something different, you get a bad grade, right? You didn't do what was told told, what was asked of you. This is how you condition people, especially children. This is how we have been conditioned. This is how this whole situation that we're in has been created. It's been created by conditioning. It's why do all these people trust in these governments? Why do they trust these government selected experts? And only those. And if the government and the system doesn't say that that expert is a right one, right? If it's an expert, another doctor, which they don't want to hear, who is telling a different story, then that's a crackpot, right? That's a conspiracy thinker. That's a nut job, right? This is the same as, this is because of the schooling, because of everything we've been taught, because you had to repeat what was in the book and you get a good grade. If you do that, you've been taught, people have been taught to be obedient to the authority figure. The man in the white coat. If the man in the white coat says it's okay, you do it. And if they say, oh, that person is not an authority, we don't believe them, only the selected authorities figures are okay. And everything else is crackpot, right? Don't listen to them. Doesn't matter if you use your own logic. No. It's just that even if it sounds logical, even if they show you proof and facts and doesn't matter. They're not the right authorities, right? So this is exactly how we've been conditioned and how this whole situation has been created. Why these people are blindly following authority. It's because as little kids, they have been taught to be obedient little slaves. We have been taught to be obedient little slaves. And I don't blame the teachers, right? The teachers are just doing what they think is best. But it's the system that has been created. It's the system that they grew up in as well, which they have normalized, that this is the normal way to treat children. This is the normal way to do schooling, right? Well, it's not education, it's schooling. It's training someone to go through these hoops. And if you do a good job, it's operant conditioning, right? You get a good grade if you repeat what we say. So I want to back this up a little bit. This is another book I highly recommend, which is one I read like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. It's called Dumbing Us Down, The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Schooling. And it's written by John Taylor Gatto. And John Taylor Gatto was a school teacher in New York State. And he won multiple awards for being a very, very good teacher, right? And he basically found out after 26 years of teaching, well, I think he found out way earlier, but he stayed in the system for 26 years. And he was basically conditioning children to be a certain way, to act a certain way. It's not just only about the curriculum. It's not just only about what is being taught. It's about the way it's structured, where it's this authority figure telling you what reality is. And if you repeat what they say reality is, you get a good grade, right? So he basically has structured these certain conditioning lessons, basically. He has said there's like 7 things that I teach them, and I want to go over them to basically show what this conditioning is that is being done on children, has been done for a long time, and now is going in overdrive with this whole crisis. So one of them is confusion. He says, everything I teach is out of context. I teach the unrelating and disconnections of everything. I teach too much, from the orbiting of planets to adjectives. Curricula are full of internal contradictions and lack of coherence. Kids leave school without one genuine enthusiasm or in-depth appreciation of anything. Humans seek meaning, not disconnected facts. Have you ever felt like that when you were at school? Have you ever felt that I'm learning all these things, but it's just this chaos of all these different things which don't have any like connections and stuff. They don't teach you how they relate. It's just, oh, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that, right? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. So the second one is class position. I teach students that they must stay in class where they belong. If I do my job well, the kids can't even imagine themselves somewhere else, because I have shown them how to envy and fear the better classes, and how to have contempt for the dumb classes. The lesson is everyone has a proper place in the pyramid, and you must stay where you are put. Powerful, right? Powerful. The third one is indifference. I teach children not to care too much about anything, even though they want to make it appear that they do. I do this by demanding students become totally involved in my lessons, exhibit enthusiasm for my teaching, compete with each other for my favor, but when the bell rings, I insist they drop whatever they are doing and proceed to the next class. Indeed, the lesson of bells is that no work is worth finishing. So why care too deeply about anything? Ever wondered why there's a school bell? Ever wondered what an effect that has? Like, this class is over, right? Go on to the next thing. Never finish what you start. The fourth one is emotional dependency. By stars and red checks, smiles and frowns, I teach kids to surrender their will to predestinated chain of command. Individuality is a contradiction to class theory and curse to all systems of classification. This is also a really, really, really big one, right? The death of individuality. Being dependent on the system, on the authority figure. Not being an individual, just being a part of the whole, right? Well, the whole always consists of individuals. And this is exactly what these bankers, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, etc., what they did, they basically wanted to make this compulsory schooling collectivist thinking, where the greater good, it's all for the greater good, right? You're not an individual. As an individual, you don't have any rights. You don't have any, you're not important. It's about the greater good, right? And of course, it's very good to think about the greater good and not be a selfish individual, only thinking about yourself and never helping others. But this thinking is built in so that they can create these stories, which we see all around us now, right? This crisis is an example of that, where it's this story about we have to do this for the greater good, and your rights as an individual don't matter at all. We can just take away those rights because it's for everyone, right? You don't want to make everyone sick. You don't want to like overrun the hospitals, then you have to stay inside. We have to lock you up. You have to close down your business. You're not important. Your rights are not important as an individual. We can say, we have the right to say that over your life because we are acting in the greater good, right? This is how powerful people are manipulating the world events. By creating these types of stories that get people behind a certain narrative to actually do all these things that they could not do if they just directly forced them on you. But you get people to go along with it, and they're supporting it, and they're actually like you create these agents of the Matrix who start like almost knocking you unconscious because you're not wearing a mask or something, right? This is they go on in the story. You create this world. This is how this world has been created that we are in right now. It's by these stories that they tell people, but they had to indoctrinate kids, us, when we were growing up in school, to basically always listen to the authority figure. And what the greater good was more important than you as an individual. So now, point 5. Intellectual dependency. Good students wait for a teacher to tell them what to do. They learn that they must wait for others, better trained, to make the choices that will direct our lives. Successful children do the thinking I assign with a minimum of resistance and decent show of enthusiasm. Curiosity has no place, only conformity. Bad kids fight this, even though they lack the concepts to know that they are fighting. There are procedures to break the will of those who resist. Our entire economy depends upon this lesson being learned. Think of what might fall apart if children weren't trained to be dependent. We've built a way of life that depends on people doing what they are told because they don't know how to tell themselves what to do. And that this is true. People can't lead their own lives. They are always looking up at other people to tell them what to do. What the government says. Oh, just follow the rules, right? No, not take full responsibility yourself. No. You're made to be dependent. Okay, so 6, professional self-esteem. It's impossible to make self-confident spirits conform. Our world wouldn't survive a flood of such spirits. So I teach that a child's self-respect should depend on expert opinion. Here we go. The lessons of report cards, grades, and tests is that children should not trust themselves or their parents, but rely on the evaluation of certified officials. This is what this has done, right? This test type of mentality. Oh, you have to study for the test, right? So important, test. And then if you didn't repeat what was in the book, if you didn't repeat what was told to you, you had a bad grade. If you didn't actually memorize everything, right? This totally nonsensical thing of memorizing everything. Something we absolutely do not need, right? This has nothing to do with critical thinking, with creativity, with actually rational thinking, memorizing stuff. And they still do this everywhere. You have to memorize these things. Okay. Number 7, one can't hide. I teach children that they are always under constant surveillance. There are no private spaces for children, no private times. Students are encouraged to tattle on each other. The meaning of constant surveillance and denial of privacy is that no one can be trusted. Privacy is not legitimate. Children must be closely watched if they want to keep a society under tight central control. So these are the different lessons that John Taylor Gatto noticed he was teaching children. These are the different conditioning techniques being used and their meaning, right? This is how we've been conditioned. This is how society has been conditioned. This is how this whole crisis and everything that's happening is now is now the way it is. It's because of these conditioning techniques which were put into the way we educate children, right? The way schooling is done. But now this is happening to children, right? It's a step further. It's where it's not even that you should just do that because you get a good grade or anything. If you don't stand in this little circle, you can actually make people sick. You can get sick and die, and you can make your grandma die, right? That's the psychology. That's what these children are being taught. Maybe not especially like explicitly where they say that exactly, but this is the underlying current. This is the underlying message that you are being taught as a human being, as a young human being. And the types of people this is going to produce I can't even imagine what type of society that will produce, right? We've seen what those rules I just explained has produced right now, and the mess that we're in right now, where there's no logical way of thinking, like where the proportionality of these measures is so far from something reasonable that it's insane. But doing this to children, it's criminal. It's criminal, and it's something we should speak out about. And I'm doing that right now, and I hope you will join me. And that this is not normal, right? This is not normal. This new normal is not normal. This is something that's highly disturbing. So if you want to watch something more, want to have some more knowledge about how our schooling was set up, how the schooling system was set up, and all the different facets of it, and the history it has, and everything, there's a very, very good series on YouTube with John Taylor Gatto, who died now, basically, by the way. But a very awesome man that was. And he, it's called The Ultimate History Lesson, and it's 5 hours, basically. So you have to, take out some time for it. And it's referenced and sourced, like with like a couple thousand sources probably, and books and things that he mentions. It's very, very intellectual, this man. But it's just to get an idea of how our society is shaped, and the effect that this psychological warfare has had on us as kids, but is now going in overdrive to the new generations, basically. And that's something that we should speak out about, and we need to go and find solutions to these kinds of things. We need to educate our kids ourselves. I don't have any kids myself, but I think that as a parent, if you are a parent, that these things that are going on at school, that's not something that your kid, that's not going to serve your kid, right? To learn to be disconnected, so disconnected from each other, to live in this constant state of fear. And I know there's different variations. It's not all schools are the same, and not all countries are the same, but the general world that they are growing up in is basically telling them that they are a danger to everyone, and that everyone is a danger to them. And this disconnection type of society that's being created is not a society that is for health. That just creates mental health and all the issues that I just explained previously in this live. So if you haven't seen that part, just go back after this live is finished, and you can see that the different ways of how going into disconnection, how to disconnect from each other, how the effect that has on our mental health is insane. That's how depression, that is what depression is. That's what anxiety, where anxiety comes from, where all these mental health issues come from, by being disconnected from each other, being disconnected from nature, being disconnected from our true nature, which is the unity of everything into one. The further we drive away from that, the further we live in this fearful state, where we are unable to touch each other, connect to each other, and are isolated, the further we go from health. That's how we get sick, basically, oftentimes. So I want to thank you for watching. Please like this video, comment under this live, and share this with your friends if you found it